Hi everybody, I'm Jason Salemi. I'm an associate professor of epidemiology at the University of South Florida College of Public Health. And I didn't have a lot of time this week to create a Twitter thread, so I thought I'd just walk through the COVID-19 update. I apologize, this is a little delayed. We had Hurricane Ian here in Florida, which caused some delays with a number of things, but we'll hop right into it. In a lot of ways, the news is good. It continues to move in the right direction. I'll briefly cover these various topics and we'll start with variants. So, right now, we still have BA5 that dominates the new cases in terms of the proportion of variants that are made up. It's 81% of new cases right now. It is noteworthy that that is down from its peak at about 87%, according to the CDC. BA 4.6 is slowly, it's not as rapid as maybe some people thought. It's slowly making up a higher proportion of cases. So, again, 4 weeks ago it was at 9% of all new cases. Now it's at about 13% of all new cases. So, in a 4 week time span, that's not a big increase in the percentage growth that it's had. We're starting to see some new variants like BF7 and BA2.75. Those are starting to increase in prevalence, but again, right now they make up such a small percentage of new cases, at least according to CDC's estimates, that it's just something that we want to keep an eye on. And of course, we're just in general doing a lot less genomic surveillance. And so I'm sure these estimates could use some improvement if we were doing a better job with genomic surveillance. Here's just a screenshot from the CDC showing kind of where we have been from week to week according to the CDC's estimates, and you can see some of those numbers I alluded to for the most common variants that are circulating right now. We transition briefly to cases, and I'm going to focus a little bit on Florida at the beginning because that's where I'm located. We are seeing a general decrease across the nation. It's not universal, but generally that's what we're seeing. And in Florida, if you just look to about 2 months ago on August 1st, we were at over 10,000 cases per day, and now we're at fewer than 1,700 per day. This is largely supported by wastewater data from BioBot for the counties that we actually have reports on that. It's either flat or decreased, and certainly if you look over the past 2 months, you tend to see a decrease in big counties. Um, it is really important to know that we're not doing nearly as much testing. The at home tests aren't getting reported. So, a lot of this is based on officially reported cases, and we're probably really underestimating a huge number of infections that are out there by relying on reported cases. That's nothing new, but maybe the extent to which it's an underreport continues to increase as we move forward in time. And specific to Florida data, it's uncertain how Hurricane Ian has impacted these data. This is just a snapshot of the number of daily cases since May 1st, 2022 across states. So these are 7-day moving averages. And again, I point out Florida has seen a dramatic decrease over time. And in fact, unless you see a state that's in the orange or the red, they've been relatively flat or decreasing recently. Here again is just the weekly snapshot of the 7-day moving average of cases. And again, even from mid-August, you can see where we've just been on a steady decline in terms of the number of cases reported officially. And we've gone from one of the worst states in per capita number of cases to now one of the best states. Here's just some of that wastewater data. In fact, Alachua County has not been part of the BioBot network. So that was actually new when I looked at it this week. But you can generally see either a decline or a flattening in most of these large counties in Florida for which we have data. The solid line is the county-specific line, and then the dashed line is what we're seeing nationally. And again, nationally, you can see either a flattening or a decrease. Okay, hospitalizations. Again, starting with Florida, we've seen pretty pronounced decreases in the number of people being hospitalized either with or for COVID-19. Just compared to 4 weeks ago, you can see the number of adults in the ICU is down 35%. The adult inpatient census is down 45%. The pediatric inpatient census is down 57%. And hospitalization rates are well below pandemic highs. So this is a nice thing to see. And again, if we just look, each line is a different state. This is hospitalization rates since April 1st of this year. Florida is the dark purple line. And again, you can see this general pattern for many states of an increase throughout the summer months and then a recent decline in Florida. That decline has been pretty pronounced. And here's just focusing on the adult hospital census since May 1st of this year. And again, I point out Florida's dramatic decrease. And again, if you're not seeing orange or red, you're seeing states that have largely declined. There are some states that have relatively small numbers of hospitalizations. You tend to see some erratic counts, but it is not universal. There are some states where we've seen increases over the past 7 days. Here's just some of the most pertinent Florida numbers over the past 8 weeks or so. And again, whether you're focusing on adults in the ICU, adults who are hospitalized, new adult daily admissions, or even in the children, again, these numbers are just tending to decrease, which is a really positive sign. And just pointing out for context that where we are and even where we've been is well below pandemic highs. This is going all the way back to summer of 2020. Again, Florida is the dark purple line, but you can see the ebb and flow of all states, and the dashed blue line that's there is kind of where we are now. And as you can see, only a few points throughout the pandemic have we been lower in hospitalization rates than we've been now. Now the county risk levels, I think everybody knows this. CDC puts out two measures. One measure is based primarily on hospitalization rates. The other measure is more transmission rates. That is the older measure. Both of them are looking really good over time. So right now, 2% of the country lives in a county that's classified as a high-risk county based on that hospitalization metric. That's the one that comes with, if you're in a high-risk area, that comes with a recommendation for universal masking in public indoor places for everybody. And again, 2% now, that's down from 61% of the country lived in a county that was deemed high risk just 9 weeks ago. And I'll show you a graphic that shows you how we've decreased over time. And in Florida right now, there are no counties that are classified as high risk, so 0% of the population. And you can see we had 9 straight weeks in Florida at greater than 90% of the population in a high risk county based on the hospitalization measure. And you can see after those 9 straight weeks, we went to 75% of the population, then 55, 50, 36, 15, 3, and now 0. So, these are things that we like to see. And even transmission levels, albeit, again, based on reported cases and not the true number of infections, that's been on a steady decline for the past 2 months or so. Here's just where we are right now at the county level with each of those measures, the hospitalization-based measure on the left, the transmission-based measure on the right. For those of you who have been following me for a while, I've added to the CDC. The CDC kind of stops at the high level, the red, the bright red anyway. I added 2 additional levels because for a while their transmission was so much higher than the threshold for the high transmission level that we needed some additional colors. But again, right now these maps are looking maybe not near where we want them to be, but certainly much better than where we've been. Here is nationally on a weekly basis at the top right, how we've progressed over time. And again, if you just focus on the orange bar there, that's the percentage of the population living in a high-risk county. And you can see where we were at 61% for 2 straight weeks, and then we've been on a steady decline since. In Florida, same thing. We had kind of pegged out almost everybody lived in a high-risk county, and more recently that has improved. This is a busy graphic, but it also shows you that, again, this is basically for every single state in the country. You see the weekly percentage of people that live in a high-risk county in that state, and then it's color-coded, where you see red, and especially deep red, that's really bad. And you can see now for the most recent week, I don't know if there's a data reporting anomaly or something happened, but we've got 10% of the population in West Virginia lives in a high-risk county, and that's the highest in the nation, whereas that would have been among the lowest not that long ago. So just really positive things. And even with transmission, again, we're actually starting to see some orange and yellow, which is the lower levels of transmission, and we didn't see that for a couple of months straight. And so both nationally and in Florida, we're seeing some improvement. And here again, just one more county level view of transmission rates. This is basically at the beginning of the month of September and at the end. So on the right, you can see a lot of purple and deep red, especially in the southeastern United States. That was really bad. We see that almost eliminated in the map on the left. And I'll also point out that that map on September 1st, it had been much worse than that. So again, the general sentiment is that transmission rates, even though we know that we're under ascertaining infections by basing it on reported cases, this is still good news. And then mortality, again, I'm going to focus primarily on Florida. We have peaked in this current wave at 73 deaths per day from COVID-19. So this is, by no means a minor sort of wave when you're seeing 73 deaths per day at the peak. And for a while, we had been hovering around 70%, kind of that slow burn. That is not a mild wave, but for context, and you'll see this in some of my graphics, it has not gotten anywhere near where we have been throughout this pandemic. And so it looks like the immunity that was conferred either by vaccinations and booster shots or by just the sheer volume of infections that we've had recently that was blunting the worst effects of this wave. This is just the number of deaths in each state per capita since April 1st of this year. You can see in Florida, we did increase from 13 deaths per day in late April to 73 deaths per day at the peak of this current wave. But if you look for context, again, this is Florida's in the deep purple there. We've got nowhere near our 4 highest waves, thank God. And you can see that blue line is kind of where we're at. As of a couple weeks ago, death reporting has lagged. So I tend to not present the most recent 2 weeks of data. And then finally, vaccinations. Again, vaccinations have slowed quite a bit. In Florida, 90% of seniors have completed a primary series, 58% of seniors have gotten a first booster, and 23% the second booster. Those percentages had not increased at all from week to week for a while, but I will say that we went from 21 to 23% on that second booster, so hopefully people are coming out to get that bivalent booster in Florida. And then this is just a snapshot nationally of where we are. Again, I'm focusing on seniors just because there's so much data I could break down here. But the primary series is on the left. The first booster percentages is in the middle. The second booster percentages is on the right. And you can see just the variation across states. And then this is just the percentage of the population that is at least completed a first booster shot among those age groups that are eligible. And again, you can just kind of see the variation not only by age, but within each age group by state. And finally, we do have a little bit of data on the bivalent booster now. Data are only available, at least in what I was able to download from the CDC, at the national level. Almost 7.6 million people have been administered the bivalent booster. That is 2.7% of the eligible population. So if we take the denominator of people 12 years of age or older in the United States, 2.7% have come out to get that bivalent booster. Even if we were to assume, because obviously the younger age groups, unless they have an immunocompromised status, maybe they're much less likely to come out. But even if we assume that every one of those nearly 7.6 million people were all seniors, and so we use seniors in the United States as the denominator, it would still only be about 14% of the US population of seniors that have received a bivalent booster. So these data are not yet broken down, again, at least in what I could get from the CDC by state, but we'll continue to monitor this and see how we're doing. So resources, of course, you can always come to visit my dashboard. All of these data are updated. There's your September 30th update. Hope everybody's doing well and is safe. And my heart goes out to all of my companions in Florida who are down south of us. We were blessed to not get severely impacted by Hurricane Ian, but I know a lot of people that were much less fortunate. So please continue giving to that cause and helping out where you can. Hope everybody stays safe, happy, and healthy. Take care.